Bedtime Story. The room smelled of dust, dampness, and old fear. We had boarded up the window tightly with heavy planks, but an ugly, deathly pale moonlight still forced its way through the cracks. 6-year-old Timmy pressed closer to me, wrapping himself in a dirty wool blanket. In his hands, he clutched a plush teddy bear with a crude, hastily made seam where one paw used to be. "Mom, I can't sleep," my boy whispered, sniffing his nose. "Tell me a story, you know, like in those books we burned during the winter to stay warm, about the gingerbread man, or knights." I sighed. My face, hollow and shadowed with deep dark circles, remained motionless. I looked past my son, staring right where the pitch-black, dead darkness of the new world stretched beyond the window planks. My hand, hidden beneath the folds of the blanket, convulsively gripped a heavy, makeshift kitchen shiv. The old fairy tales were dead. They taught kindness, compassion, and faith in miracles. In a world where humanity had turned into subcutaneous cattle for 30-foot insectoids, those fairy tales were a death sentence. "All right, silly goose," I forced a soft, reassuring smile onto my face and stroked my boy's hair. "Listen closely. You haven't heard this one yet." I took a deep breath, trying hard to keep my voice perfectly steady. "A long, long time ago, in a very quiet kingdom, there lived the Silver Weavers. They were huge, powerful, and a loved silence more than anything in the world. They spun their beautiful silver webs right before the houses and caught foolish thoughts in them." Timmy listened, spellbound, his mouth slightly open. "The Weavers never hurt people," I continued, my voice flowing like sweet honey. "But they had one important rule. The Weavers couldn't stand noise. Noise tore their delicate silver threads. And so, they made a pact with the humans." I cut short. On the other side of the boarded-up window, a heavy, sickening scrape echoed. It sounded as if someone was deliberately dragging a massive, bony spike across the wooden siding of the house. The building trembled quietly. Timmy shuddered and was about to scream, but my palm instantly clapped over his mouth with a death grip. My other hand squeezed the hilt of the shiv until my knuckles turned white. A single tear rolled down my pale cheek, but when I spoke, my whisper remained unnaturally gentle, soothing. "Shh. Listen to the rest of the story, sweetie. The pact said the Weavers would never, ever touch a child who knows how to play the invisible game." Through the cracks in the boards, a long leg covered in stiff, chitinous hairs slowly crept into the room like a black snake. The sharp claw at its tip scraped blindly against the floor, sensing living warmth. In the darkness outside, one by one, 8 small, phosphorescent yellow eyes lit up right within the cracks. They stared straight at our mattress. "And the rules of the game are very simple," I exhaled right into my boy's ear, while the giant leg rustled right above our heads. "You have to close your eyes, hold your breath, and become as quiet as a pebble at the bottom of a river. The first one to make even a single sound loses, and then the Weavers carry them away to their silver castles, forever." The leg froze 2 feet away from the blanket. The black hairs on it twitched, catching vibrations in the air. Timmy squeezed his eyes shut so hard it must have hurt. He clamped his mouth shut with his tiny hands, using all his might, and stopped breathing. A strange, childlike smile froze on his lips. He really wanted to win this game and make me proud. Suddenly, somewhere out on the street, just a couple of houses down, a piercing scream of primal terror ripped through the night silence. It lasted for only a second, then cut off abruptly with a wet, crunching sound. The hairy leg in our room twitched instantly, spun around, and rapidly retracted back through the crack between the boards. A fast, receding scrape of claws against the roof followed. The monster rushed towards the fresh noise. I slowly lowered the shiv. My chest heaved heavily, and cold sweat poured down my face. I leaned over to my son, who was still sitting with his eyes shut tight, not breathing, and gently removed my hand from his face. "Son," I whispered, barely audibly into his ear, a bone-chilling emptiness creeping into my voice. "Do you hear that? Someone already lost." I taunted Skinwalkers as a joke. I think one of them killed my neighbor. I never thought I would be writing this, but I am pretty sure that what just came after me is a Skinwalker, and I know no one will believe me. I always knew about Skinwalkers since I was young, when I used to go to the countryside in a small town in northeastern Arizona in the summertime. An old Navajo man would sometimes come from the forest, and all us kids would gather around him while he told us scary stories about Skinwalkers. Now I think they were never stories. I think he was trying to warn us. When I turned 20, I moved there to get away from the big city and to be able to ride trails on the dirt bike I'd had since I was 15. Everything was great. I had a new job fixing bikes, and I had friends I would go riding with on the weekends. We knew each other since we were kids and had all heard the stories of Skinwalkers. We never joked about them. Shit, we never even talked about them, which is weird since we all love horror stuff. But the one thing we never joked about was Skinwalkers, even though we all thought that they were just an old myth. One day, a girl showed up in our town. She was on vacation with her family, and one of my friends met her somehow. She mentioned she loved camping, so of course my friends and I wanted to take her. On the night we went, she kept mentioning Skinwalkers and how everyone said that they were around these parts. She said she saw a video of a man who went into the forest taunting them and saying their name in the native language. "I'd never be brave enough to do that, especially around these parts," she said. Me, being the idiot that I am, and in an effort to impress her, got up and said, "They are not real. I can say it, and nothing will happen," while forcing out a laugh. Then I made probably the worst mistake of my life. I said, "Yee, Nalushi," and whistled 3 times. My friend got up and said it right after me, "Yee, Nalushi," and also whistled. We could see the girl was scared, so we comforted her and told her it was just a myth, and she looked like she felt better. A few days passed and I forgot about the incident. The girl left, and I headed back home after a ride, sitting in my yard, enjoying a snus when I noticed something weird. The neighbor's cat was sitting on my porch. That cat always hated me since I was a child, so seeing it sit on my porch looking at me was weird. I didn't care though. I scared it off and went back inside. Over the next couple of days, that cat would sit there every day I came back from work. I started to get annoyed by it because it was harder and harder to scare off. Once I needed to pick it up and put it next to my neighbor's fence. The cat seemed calm when I picked it up. Actually, it didn't move at all. The next day, I was riding when a storm came, so I drove back home, putting my bike right outside the fence and covering it up. I was going toward the door when I saw it. The cat. It was standing up on 2 legs looking at me. It looked like it was scared. It looked at me like it had no soul behind those eyes. Why would a cat be standing up on 2 legs? I tried to make it go away, but it wouldn't move or react. I reached out to touch it and try to pick it up, but its skin was ice cold. I had never felt something colder in my life. I took my hands off it, quickly went inside, and called my neighbor to tell her something was wrong with her cat. She said to please feed her, since she probably forgot to, and it was probably why the cat was acting weird. "No, you don't understand. It's standing up on 2 legs," I said. "You know nothing about cats, do you?" she said. "They get up if they are catching a bug or something." Before I could say anything else, she told me to stop being paranoid and feed her cat, and then she hung up. I went and got a fish I had, threw it out the door, and went inside. I was in bed watching something and almost forgot about the cat when I heard it. Footsteps. I ran to get my tablet to check my cameras, but there was nothing. Probably just some rain sounds. I'm tired. I'm just making it up, I said to myself. At 2 a.m., they got louder. I went to check again, but still nothing. They sounded like feet walking on wet grass, just a lot heavier and a lot faster. Almost like someone was running around in my house. I opened the window for a second to see if anyone was there, and the sound stopped. Then I smelled it. Rotting flesh. I almost threw up from it. I closed the window and went to the bathroom to throw up, then came back. Something got in my yard and died. Maybe a deer or one of the pigs that walk around. Maybe the coyotes are back. Yes, that has to be it. The coyotes are eating a dead animal that got into my yard. There's no other explanation for that smell. Then I heard it again. David. My name. It sounded like my neighbor's voice. Maybe she was back. David. Again. Maybe my neighbor was back, or maybe something happened to her cat. I slowly opened the window to look for her when I saw something behind the trees. It had a human face with fully black eyes and white skin. It was taller than anything should be, its head reaching higher than my window, even though it was on 4 legs. Its back was arched in an unnatural way, staring right at me. It let out a horrible sound and started running toward the window, its legs, or whatever you could call them, bending at an unnatural angle. They looked like they were about to come out of its skin. I ran towards the window to my front yard while hearing glass breaking behind me, with that thing making screaming sounds no human or animal could make. I smashed the window and jumped out, pieces of glass sticking into me. I ignored the pain, took the cover off my dirt bike, pulled my keys out of my pocket and put them in, setting my leg on the kickstart. I started kicking the kickstart as hard as I could. Kick, 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 kick. I looked up and saw it staring at me. I could see its bones almost sticking out of it. One last kick and the engine started. I climbed onto it and throttled as hard as I could, so hard I almost looped back. I rode for a long time. The only sound I could hear was the engine, while remembering that horrible sound that thing made. It sounded like someone was choking, but at the same time screaming in pain. I saw lights behind me and realized there was a police car. I pulled over, and the officer got out of the car and came toward me. "Do you own this bike? There is no plate on it." I didn't know what to say. I noticed him looking at my bloody arms and legs with a piece of glass sticking out of my arm. "I don't know what happened here, but until we see that you own this bike, you are coming back to the station with me." And so I sit in the police station riding this. It knows where I am. I can hear the cops talking outside. They seem scared. I would be too. I can smell it. Rotting flesh. It is coming here. I should have never said its name. I'm 29 now. I've still yet to forget every detail about a night at my friend's when I was 16. Before I begin, I would like to say this story is my truth. It's never left me, and I rarely tell people about it to avoid the inevitable cynicism. Also, to preface this story, this house I was at was a good friend, and I stayed over dozens and dozens of times throughout my youth. Strange things in small doses happened through the years. Things I brushed off, maybe even would have forgotten if I hadn't reflected so hard after being shaken to the core. Examples. His parents would be mad at us constantly for leaving the freezer, fridge, cupboard doors open, even on nights we didn't leave his room. Hide and seek. I was sure someone was in the room with me. Room felt unusually cold. When I couldn't find anyone, I turned to leave and felt what seemed like to be a hand on my back. I turned around and nobody was there. We would play manhunt on a big property, regularly having 8 to 10 kids playing around for hours. Not once, but twice, with 2 different kids calling the game short and insisting on calling their parents to go home. Both times looking like they were sick or spooked. 4 of us sleeping over after a grade 8 graduation went to bed really late, all agreeing it was time to call it. When we closed our eyes, the whole house stereo system blasted a song from Footloose. Lastly, there were probably other things that aren't worth mentioning, or I even heard stories later of things that people encountered for which I can't vouch myself. I would mention something here or there to my friend, where he would adamantly tell me to not speak about it, especially while we were present in the house. I was never good at grammar or got good grades in English class growing up, but I'm going to try my best to write this down as best I can. I am going to finally get this on pen and paper. Hopefully someone out there will read it and appreciate it for what it is. I will start the story with saying my friend Chris's house was a big mansion. 5 bedrooms with a live-in maid suite. It had maybe a half a kilometer driveway with a sweet pond out front and located on Lake Ontario, which is something that will be relevant at the end of the story. One night, his parents were away for a wedding. It was just me and Chris and Max. Max is Chris's dog. Max to this day was the most well-trained, well-mannered dog I've ever come across. He was unbelievably smart, aware, and I never remember ever hearing him bark. We were watching some show or documentary on Aboriginal culture. I think we were laughing at each other over imitating some Aboriginal war cry or tribal sounds. We were eating pizza and wings with money his parents left and having a good night. Chris left to put the pizza away, and he came back in the room. His energy was different. It was still before 11, which was early for us being home alone teenagers. He just wanted to go to his room and go to bed. Fine, cool, no questions asked. I was laying in bed alone, when a sound took my attention to the nightstand on the other side of the bed. I seen a pair of headphones, the kind with small earbuds and wires, slowly moving off, dangling down till gravity took over. It was definitely notable enough because I just couldn't convince myself that was a situation where it was a weird gravity illusion. Only about 2 inches of the end of the aux cord was hanging over the edge, with the rest of the wire spread across the surface. I watched as if the cord was being pulled down slowly till enough wire was over the edge and fell to the ground. Chris entered the room with Max, and I hesitatingly told him what I had seen because I know he didn't like me bringing up weird shit. He reacted strangely, with almost anger, asking me if I'm just messing with him because he was already spooked. You already spooked? I asked. What he told me freaked me out. He said he was putting away the pizza in the fridge when a 2-liter Coke bottle on the counter tipped over and rolled off. He went and picked it up. When he did, the fridge slammed shut. He walked back to the room with me and said it was time for bed. I told him to chill out, and maybe I was just seeing things, and convinced him, and maybe myself, that it was just a weird gravity situation. I must have moved it enough to start the process of falling off when I got in the bed. We calmed down, shut off the lights, and got in bed. Within 2 minutes of us in bed chatting away, the lamp on the nightstand on his side turned on. The table lamp was one of the ones where you touch anywhere to turn off and on. We both went silent, looking at each other, then back at the lamp. Before we could get a word in, it turned off. We were both stiff as a board. 10 seconds pass. Back on. Now remember calm, reserved, well-trained, silent Max. He started growling right in the direction of the nightstand. I've never seen this dog do anything like that in 7-9 years of knowing him. This maybe lasted 20 seconds, but I can promise you it felt like an eternity frozen in fear. Then the light turned off. Max runs like a bat out of hell, chasing something out of the room. When he sprints out the door, it slams behind him. We hear him running down the stairs, and we both went after him. After all, that dog was one of the boys for real. We got to the bottom of the stairs and noticed he went all the way down in the basement. This is where we stopped for a minute. Max is one of the boys, but his basement was scary as fuck during the day, never mind in this instance. The growling suddenly turned to a loud yelp. Quickly, we pleaded in our calls for him to come up. He came very shortly after, with his tail quite literally shaking between his legs. We got our shoes on and got the fuck out of there. We walked down the drive with Max and contemplated our next move. Should we go back in? Should we find somewhere else? While looking back at the house from the road, we noticed his bedroom light turned back on. We could see from the street. That was a big nope. We phoned a friend that was a 20-minute walk away and told him we needed to crash there for the night. Here's the kicker. His father installed cameras over the house for reasons I don't know for sure, but I can only assume. Apparently he caught some freaky things, including a night where the fridge, freezer, and cabinets in the kitchen all opened at once. I seen this video, which exonerated us on the accusations of the past. He told me of shadows and other unpleasant things caught that I have never seen myself, but can only imagine. Years later they moved out. His father had sleep apnea that completely disappeared from the first week of being in the new environment. His mother had bad vertigo episodes that never happened ever again. With his father out of denial, he admitted an ugly truth. I forgot to mention earlier in the story that his family had built this out from the ground up. Early in construction, they discovered what seemed to be several burial sites of old human remains. He never reported them, in the fear that the project would be put on hold till a full property investigation could take place. It could have been a year delay, but that didn't sound like something he wanted to deal with. This decision took a toll on him, to say the least. I can't help to think it was weird that the same night we were making fun of an Aboriginal show was the same night we got totally taunted and fucked with. Maybe the ghost was of Aboriginal descent. Bones in the area we live in is a common occurrence in new developments. A known area of history, Aboriginal roots. Maybe just a theory. This opened me up to a life of investigation about the supernatural and unknown, not calling people crazy or full of shit. Before that night, I had no interest in the subject other than avoidance. Paranormal experience as a paramedic. I work as a paramedic, and up until recently, I didn't believe in ghosts or spirits. I got a call around 10 p.m. at night, concern for welfare. Happens all the time, usually in warden-controlled properties, as they have falls all the time. My colleague wanted to live stream her kids before bed, so I said I'd go into the property on my Todd and call her if I needed backup. I knocked on the door, met by an old man who asked why I was there, and said he pressed his care call alarm by mistake. I asked if he wanted checking over, to which he responded he had an issue with his blood pressure, so may as well while I was there. Directly from the front door was the bedroom. The light was on, and there was a woman sat up in the bed. She looked at me, but didn't say anything. I assumed she had dementia, so I just left her to it. We walked into the lounge, and I did my assessment. After my assessment, we got onto small talk, weather, what he used to do for a living, etc. I then asked him about his wife, how long they had been together. He responded they had been together for 40 plus years before she sadly passed 4 years ago. I then apologized and said at least it was nice he had another woman to share his bed with. He then responded back, "What woman? I live here alone." I asked, so who was the woman in his bed? He then replied, "Fucked if I know, mate." I asked if he could show me some pictures of his missus, and I shit you not, there she was, the woman, albeit a bit younger, in the picture with him. I walked out of the room and looked in the room again. She wasn't there. I couldn't wait to get the fuck out of that house. I then proceeded to be dead silent for the rest of my shift, so much that my colleague went to management, as she thought it was totally out of character and I was suffering from PTSD. She didn't believe me when I told her the story.